The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program, and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
There we are. Well, hello. Welcome to Spindle City Straight Talk. I'm Chip.
And I'm CJ.
And my neck's still purple, so at least today I don't have a straight jacket on. But it's changing color. You're the nurse. It's really dark purple now, but it's beginning to change. When it gets yellow, I'll pull this thing off. But
that sounds like a plan to me. So today's just been the day from heck going all over the place.
Heck? Oh.
Coming in from my appointment with an amazing chiropractor. I don't think you know him, though, Chip. Yeah. I got to hear the boy emperor touting positivity of Fall River. We're wonderful. We're great. We're going to attract businesses to come to Fall River with our Streetscapes program. We're going to bring them all here because they're going to want to be in Fall River because we have an incredible amount of space. That means vacant mills. An incredible amount of housing. That means market rate housing that nobody's going to rent. And an incredible community that we want to come to. Heroin, junkies, prostitutes,
no
crime.
Money.
No money. So yeah, businesses definitely, I can see Best Buy now. Well, I got to choose between Minneapolis, Minnesota, where, by the way, we're based out of, or Fall River, Massachusetts. Yeah, I think I'm going to stay where people have disposable income. I don't know.
Well, look, it's nice to be positive, but when you're 4'11" and you aspire to be in National Basketball Association center, your chances are pretty slim. There's got to be, especially when you're dealing with a city in this kind of situation economically. You have to have some modicum. You can't be delusionary because sometimes positivity can be so convoluted that it becomes dysfunctional. And that's what he's doing. I mean, he's feeding the pablum and giving you 55-gallon drums of Kool-Aid to wash it down. The fact is, nobody's coming. I don't care what kind of street lights you put in. Businesses can't sell anything. And I thought it was pretty ironic. I think during a presidential debate, they talked about how the savior to this nation is not going to be these huge businesses. It's going to be small businesses. So you have to have an atmosphere that really entices small businesses to open. And that atmosphere is a population that has money to keep those small businesses in business, because small businesses run on a very, very narrow profit margin. They don't have a lot of employees. They have to spend money on their employees. They're mandated in this state to provide things. And so they need customers. They need a steady stream of customers. One of the reasons you don't see any kind of restaurants last for very long in Fall River is that people don't have money. It's that simple. And, to go on there and tell people that because let's all be the little engine that could. Well, the little engine doesn't work. If the little engine that could doesn't have an engine, it's not getting up the hill. If you put a paint job on the engine, it's still not going to get up the hill because the engine isn't working. The engine is the people, is the economy. What have we had? How are you going to get the 23%, nearly 1/4 of the people in this community above the poverty level? I'm not talking about having a ton of discretionary income. I'm talking about getting them out of poverty. What's the percentage of people that qualify for the school lunch program?
63.
63%. That's more than half, in case you don't know your percentages.
And actually, that number may even be a little higher this year.
Yeah, it probably will be a little higher. So, look. I guess a former mayor was on the radio basically saying it won't work because he's got some modicum of realism, and people call up and say he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, he was one thing about it. Let me say this, CJ, because I got to get this out. There are a lot of people with this, everything's personal, everything's negative. No, we're being totally objective. No money, no ticky, no laundry. That's it. And, people got on there and immediately began to attack him, saying he doesn't know what he's talking about. Well, Sun Tzu in The Art of War said, know yourself and know your enemy, and you're assured of victory in 100 battles. Well, one thing about Bob Correa, you may disagree on what he says, but to say he doesn't understand politics and government and the city as a former mayor, and even though he only lasted one term, it was more because of his personality and his management style. He actually was doing a pretty good job with the city as far as understanding the direction and trying to turn the finances around. 30 years in Boston. So for people, if that's the best you got, he doesn't know what he's talking about, well, prove it. Show me a Streetscapes program, as I said. I'll go on again. Show me a Streetscapes program in any city that has 23% of the people living below the poverty level, has the lowest per capita income in the state it exists in, has no tourism and no money, and has bonded itself into oblivion. Show me a city that putting lipstick on that pig is going to bring people to ride that pig, because nobody's riding the pig.
Nope, and this isn't a rodeo in Texas for the grease pig contest either. So, but it's very interesting because part of his diatribe of propaganda, and we say it all the time, Goebbels says it best, if you lie enough and say that lie enough, people will believe it. He is saying that this is in his 9 months or 10 months of office so far, it's not even 10 months yet, it will be tomorrow, that he's improved Fall River. Show me. Show me. What's that old line? Show me the money? Show me. I do know that you've spent $24,000 to a friend who did absolutely nothing on a contract that nobody can seem to find. Because I've been waiting for that contract since July. And I got a letter back from corporate counsel says the attached is the contract that you requested. Guess what was attached to it? I'll give you 5 guesses and you'll never guess what was not there.
Don't keep me in suspense.
Yeah, the contract wasn't there. Okay? It's like everything else. It's the delay tactics. Why? Because they got to cover their tracks. And it seems to me that this administration is bordering on RICO violations and racketeering charges. Yeah. Because this is getting to be nuts. Yeah, well, but then again, as we know, there'll be a finding of no finding.
Yeah, true. Well, he has made Fall River a better place for his
friends,
for his campaign people, for his cronies, for people who live in Rhode Island, because 85 to 90% of the hirings he's made have been people who don't live in the city of Fall River.
Right.
They live all over Massachusetts and Rhode Island, and they've gotten salaries larger than they've ever had in their life, and they're not qualified. And what has really happened to Fall River? Amazon came in. All right, Amazon, that was before his tenure. It was already coming in. And the fact is that Amazon is a predatory company. We all saw what happened with Wells Fargo and what the employees of Wells Fargo were. Everything runs in cycles. We're going back, rather than chaining people to machines like they used to at the beginning of the great manufacturing era, and having child labor. Today we have these predatory companies that want to make money so much that their employees live in fear. They're under constant pressure all the time. And Amazon has been, they've been outed for that, as now Wells Fargo has, and as Walmart has. They keep unions out. They're difficult companies because all they care about is making money. But with all this, you haven't made anything better. All you've done is talk a good game. And you know something? That rah-rah crap doesn't make any difference. You know, if you got a basketball team that can't play basketball, you can have the greatest cheerleaders in the world. Everybody may look at your cheerleaders, but you're not going to win the basketball game. And the reality of this thing is, the reality this here and anywhere in the country, the reality that was a reality in Detroit, the reality that's a reality in Miami where you took your vacation to talk about Streetscapes, which is, by the way, the worst city in the country to live in if you're a resident, not a tourist. As our great Herald News once said, it's a paradise. It's a paradise for tourists, as we've gone over numerous times. But it's a terrible place. They have ghettos and high crime and drugs, and just as we do.
Well, you know, now that you brought up the Pravda, I have to say this. You know, the Pravda has a community board, people from the community that make recommendations. And recently, and I spoke to one of the community board members, they made a recommendation that the Pravda no longer endorse candidates. Well, you know, one of the members of that, who is a political appointee to the Elections Commission, said, oh no, this is a tradition. We have to keep this tradition up.
Yeah, because you have to vote for the guy who appointed me.
That's right, exactly. But, you know, this doesn't, and, you know, the Herald News, a.k.a. Pravda, may want to say that these community advisory boards or panels or whatever they want to call them may be making it better to present the news stories to the people who read their paper. Well, guess what? People have stopped reading your paper. People have even stopped looking at your website because they can't follow anything anymore. They can't find it. So, again, you create this whole new website which is supposed to make life wonderful and easy, but you've actually made it worse for everybody. And you partner with organizations to try to... Chip, are you having a problem out there?
My cord's wrapped up.
Yeah.
But no, you're right, CJ, because look, let's do something really unique. You're talking about boards.
Yep.
And you know, in a way, I like them to endorse people because it tells me who not to vote for.
Exactly.
I don't mind that. But look, why don't we, you know, we always hear about you know, even in law, a jury of your peers. Why don't we have all these committees comprised of what Fall River really reflects? Why don't we have 23% of this committee of people who live below the poverty level?
Exactly.
Why don't we have 50% of the people making less than $35,000 a year? Why don't we put them on the board? Don't put Kenny Fiola with his $500,000 between him and his wife and the little check he gets monthly from the parking garages and all the other little subsidies he gets. Don't put these people on that are now gone from slumlords to captains of the changing of Fall River's complexion. You know, these are not the people that are reflective of the community. It's just like the board of directors at Charlton, making their six-figured salaries in a non-quote, non-profit hospital, and they don't care. How many of them live in the city of Fall River? None, probably. Why don't we have a city that's reflective of the city? Why don't we have department heads that live in the city? How many department heads live in the city?
None, probably.
Well, maybe one.
Yeah, well,
I don't even think that one does. But you know, this is the ridiculousness of this. You know, this is double speak. They divert attention by telling everybody we've got to love our city. Well, you know, I've always said, Fall River. We don't live in Fall River. Fall River lives in us. But you have to be realistic. How many junkies are we going to put on the board? Because we got a lot of people that have opioid problems. Let's have something that's reflective of our community. Because you know something? The federal government mandated that fire departments and police departments had to have hiring quotas to make it more reflective of the percentages of groups within those communities. Yet, when we look at a community and we look at the appointees, I never see somebody that's got to work 3 jobs. They don't have time to be on the committees anyway because they're scraping. They don't have 2 nickels to rub together. And these are the people that people are going to run to Fall River because we want them to. You see, that's the whole flaw in this argument. You know, it's like if you sit in a corner and wish that you're going to get something, well, you're not. I've been wishing for years that I hit the Powerball for $300 or $400 million, and then I could hire a lawyer to fight all these things to the Supreme Court of the United States, because that's the reason that they get away with stuff. Nobody has the money to fight them, but it doesn't happen. I mean, I wish every day every time there's a Powerball drawing for over $100 million that I hit it, but I never do. I don't even win $1. But you know, that's the thing. All he's doing, it's hyperbole. It's equine excrement. He's trying to sell and he's appealing. It's just like when you wave the flag. You wave the flag of patriotism, and everybody should love this country because it's a great country. But sometimes this country has done some heinous things by using this nation as an excuse. We lost a lot of people in a lot of wars that we shouldn't have been involved in, and we're still losing them in Afghanistan. And we should have known better. And in the name of religion, in the name of nationalism, in the name of many, many things, that's one of the psychological ploys they use to get on board. And what they do is they want to appeal to you. Yeah, you're in Fall River, you're a Fall River resident, you want to see it get better. But it doesn't get better by making these ridiculous assumptions that putting street lights in and putting facades on a building in a city that just had a school declared a level 4 school. Who's going to move into this city? Market rate housing? Half the market rate housing turns into welfare housing at some point. Businesses are going to come in to sell products to who? The people with no money? The people that order off the dollar menu at McDonald's because they don't have any money? You know, let's get a grip. Let's throw them all out. Let's put somebody in there who realizes that this city will only get better when we begin to get people jobs and begin to stop the influx of people without jobs. That's when the city will turn around. Stop bringing people in that don't have jobs and start spending money on training people and preparing people to get into the job market. This city was not an affluent city at one time, but the city was viable. We had a lot of stores. Pleasant Street had a store all the stores are occupied. When I grew up in the Flint, 2 5 and dime stores, all clothing stores. Why? Virtually everybody had a job. Great. Granted, it wasn't the greatest job in the world, but they got a paycheck every week. And it got you enough money to go out to eat once in a while, to go to stores and buy things. And we had businesses then, a lot more businesses than we have now. And why are we the lowest, I don't know, we're either the lowest or the second lowest of number of businesses for a city of our size in the state? There's a reason why Newton and Cambridge lead with number of businesses of cities of our size. They're number 1 and 2 in income, and number 1 and 2 in the least amount of people living below the poverty level. That's why. And for the mayor to go on with his rah-rah speech, as a matter of fact, you know something, don't go on a radio anymore. Go on television. Come on over here and do a promo. Have all your cronies behind you with pom-poms jumping up and down and cheering for Fall River like that's going to matter. Because as long as there's people in here that can't buy anything, as long as the demographic remains the same, we're going to be like Detroit. Not like New York City. Not like Providence. We're going to be like Detroit and Flint That's what we're going to be like, because it's all about people and money and jobs.
Something we don't have. You know, the problem that I have with this, and you know, former Mayor Bob Correa the first, said it very clearly. You know, he wants to see Fall River succeed. I want to see Fall River succeed. I want to see us having nice roads and nice sidewalks and trees on every corner and everything else. But the problem with this whole program is this. It's the money. And the only people getting the money are the mayor's friends. And we have a tree farm here in Fall River. We have a tree committee. Well, if Purchase Street or Pleasant Street or anywhere else, and they're not part of the city, by the way, that's a separate program that was created under Perry Long. Perry Long did something that was, you know, probably positive for once. And they go out and they plant trees. They plant them on the medians. You look at Eastern Avenue, Brighton Avenue, they've planted a lot of those trees. And they require the neighborhoods to get volunteers to water them and upkeep them and everything else. And that's not costing the city a dime. But we're going to pay $1 million to put trees along Purchase Street and trees along...
Those are pretty expensive trees.
Hey, this is what I'm saying. A lot of this could be done a lot cheaper locally instead of putting this out in this manner and tying up the bonding. And when you hear a duplicitous city council like we have that says, you gave away $24,000, but we're going to give away $2 million to a private school, and then we're going to say, no, we're not going to vote to expand that school system.
Bipolar.
Yeah, I mean, I'm about ready to go out and hand lithium out. You know, I'm going to get prescriptions for lithium for all of them because they need something. And the problem is that you, the people, you, the voter in Fall River, I don't believe you're stupid. I really don't. I think you're just fed up. And you're so fed up you don't feel that anything matters anymore. Because no matter what you say, no matter what you do, you don't feel it works. Because guess what? That's how I feel.
Well, a minority voter is, the well-educated voter, the person who can separate their personal feelings and vote for people who are going to move this city forward, are in the minority. Now, as I said, most of them have moved out. People with jobs and paychecks moved out to Somerset and Swansea. 30 years ago, these people would have been out of office very quickly. They wouldn't have lasted. They couldn't raise taxes because they would have got bounced out. But let me just make a point here. As we've made it, and I think maybe just to highlight it again and reiterate it, Streetscapes doesn't beautify a city. It beautifies either a business area or a tourist area. They don't do beautification in ghettos. So that's not going to help the areas. And let me remind everybody about something we talked about a few programs ago. One of our viewers encapsulated the reality of Fall River to me in a conversation when he said, the railroad trestle at the bottom of President Avenue, they've spent who knows how many hundreds of thousands of dollars doing it. They painted it, they did it all, and then within 3 or 4 days there was graffiti all over it.
Quikasham Rail Trail.
So the graffiti all over it, and this is the Fall River. Until the community itself gets to the point where the lunatics are no longer running the asylum, and we have people who work and then have pride in their community. I mean, Fall River was always a showpiece, lower income, yet the people here cared about their homes. Their homes were meticulously taken care of, and you know, people used to come in here, and I had people from out of town that came down here that were amazed by even the 3-deckers and the 2 families, because they'd say, wow, these people really take care of their properties.
Right.
But now it's mostly absentee landlords, and why? Because they got out of the city. And the problem is, let's stop trying to bury our head in the sand and try to pretend that a paint job, as I said, on a car with no engine, or lipstick on a pig is going to change that pig. Because all the wishing in the world and all your positivity, Mr. Mayor, is not going to bring anybody here because there's nobody here to support it. All you got to do is look at your buddies down on Duval Street. You know, I predicted when they opened Jerry Remy's, Jerry Remy wasn't going to keep that place for very long. He's dumped it. And now it's in the hands of people that are making so much money on the side they can afford to use it as a write-off.
That's it.
But these people, you don't see businesses being sustained. We had a steakhouse once in Fall River. How long did that last? We had an Italian restaurant once in Fall River. How long did that last? You know, we've seen these places. Yet you go to a little town that's a quarter or a half the size of Fall River. Drive down 140 and Route 44 in Taunton, a city that's, what, half the size, two-thirds the size? There are more restaurants on Route 44 and 140 going into Taunton from 24 than there are in the entire city of Fall River. I don't mean Portuguese restaurants, because we got the most in the world, I think, besides Portugal. But you show your options up there, and this is the thing. Why? Because if you look at the income in Taunton, it's higher. You look at the poverty level, it's lower. And you know, fewer people. You know, and everybody wants to pretend that if we wish and hope, but the only people that are doing well with all of these things are the mayor's friends and the rich people and the people who have the money.
Right.
The people who are living up at the Highlands and getting their salaries and not doing their job. And all the king's men can't put Humpty Dumpty back together again unless we get jobs. Period.
Well, you know, it's...
You know, follow the money, follow the jobs.
The problem that I have in general with most of this crap is that no matter how many people say it's not viable, okay, it's not going to work for Fall River, nobody wants to hear it. And that's what makes the bigger problem. And, you know, you brought up something very interesting that, you know, the federal government required hiring quotas. I think I'm going to ask the city for their EEO compliance because I don't know of any Latinos, Hispanics, African Americans, or Asians that currently work for the city of Fall River. This could be a federal complaint. This could be a federal complaint.
How about their compliance with the residency?
Yeah, well, they never comply with that because, as Linda said it, it's a residency requirement that doesn't mean anything. Well, Linda, you voted for it. Your colleagues on the city council created it. 18 months to establish residency. Come on, get real.
And after 18 months, everybody forgets they're there.
That's right.
And they never.
Exactly. And then you get somebody like Faust Fiore, who is an elected official in another community. So when posed the question to him, what are you going to do when the 18 months runs out? He goes, I don't know. He's hoping that he's just going to walk through the rest of the way. See, this is the problem. You, the voter, do not require your elected officials to comply with the law. And when that happens, then you do not have a representative democracy or a representative republic. You have a dictatorship. You have a monarchy.
And what greater example of that is when they say on camera, when the city admits that they're breaking this expenditure down so the taxpayers can't voice their opinion. Because you know something? I know you all wish that this affected my vocal cords, but it didn't. But the fact is, we would have absolutely nothing. We could say we disagree, but we'd have absolutely nothing to complain about if the city council did their job, put it on the ballot. If it gets voted in, well, we got to live with it because the majority of people in the city wanted it. But as long as only you want it and the people have not spoken, it's equine excrement. So stay angry, everybody.
Yep, and as they always say, I want a new government, but you can't get rid of my guy. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on Monday.
My man